Hello everyone, my name is Anvita Bansal and we are back with another lecture based on strings. So the problem that we are going to discuss today will be Roman number to integer. So this is from your SDE sheet, as you can see. Let's move to the problem. Let me check if you guys are able to see me. Okay, that's fine. You guys can write your doubts in the chat section. Okay, so you are given a string in Roman number. Your task is to convert it into an integer. That's the pretty simple thing that you need to do. How will you handle it? So first of all, I'm assuming that you know what Roman numbers are. You just have to return their integer value in this function. Okay, so these are some symbols that have been given to you for your reference, and let's look at some examples and we'll see how we are going to solve this problem. Okay, so I've taken a few test cases. What is the integer value for this Roman number? So you will be given input of this form, okay, and what you need to return will be of this form, that is the integer form. Output will be of this type. Okay, now you need to just have some understanding and some observations on these Roman numbers and evaluate your answers. So for example, if you're given XL, you need to know these symbols beforehand so that you can make this observation. So X stands for 10, right? X stands for 10. L stands for 50. And you know that XL is equal to 40. Fine. Let me write some more examples. L is what? L is 50. Okay. If I write 10, this is what? This is 10. If I write x1, this is what? It's 11. x2, that's 12. Fine. So on and so forth. If I write something like this, x1v, you know this is what? This is 14. But can you observe something? This is 10, this is 1, and this is 5. Okay. Now, what is xv? This is 15. What is xv1? That is 16. I'm writing this to just make you understand or help you reach to that observation that we are going to use in this case, in this problem. So xv1, what is this going to be? This is 10, we know. This is 5, we know. This is 1. Okay, but this value in itself is going to be 16. So what difference did this string and this string makes that we got an answer? One is 14, other one is 16. If you closely observe, when we get a value, this is x is 10, okay, this is 1, this stands for 1, and the next following value is 5. So do you see one thing? If I consider them in pairs, now I want to elaborate on this. Let's elongate the string and then understand. If I just see each of the pairs in the given string, x1v, okay, then other one is xv1. I want you to closely look at this part. Let's say I take I and I plus 1th index. This is I plus 1. You will compare the next index character with the previous index character. When you see that the next character's value, integral value, which is 1 in this case, it is 10 in this case. When you see that 1 is less than 10, what you did? You made a decision when we find a pair in which the next integer value is less than the previous integer value. With this means that this can be added to my final answer to get the result, right? So let's say initially my answer was 0. Just understand right now, you will understand clearly once we go through this entire string. Okay, so when I check for the next character's integer value, it comes out to be less than this current value, right? So I will take decision for the character at ith position. Okay, I will add it to my answer. What I will add? Its integer value, because I am storing the integral value into my answer which I want to return. So right now your answer will become 10. Okay, since you did this thing to include, whether to include 10 or how to include it in my final answer, you made this decision depending on I plus 1th index's integral value. You need to do the same for the rest of the string. Compare in pairs, but take decision for only ith indexed character. Okay, now you compare, this is 1, this is 5. Now when you check, you see that the I plus 1th, now let's say your I is at this position, I plus 1th index's integral value is greater than the previous integral value, right? This means that ideally this entire should make up to number 4. Okay, and this should be added to my answer. So how did you come at 4? What you will do is that when you find such a character which is greater than the previous character's integer value, in your answer what you will do, you will subtract the current ith indexed character's integer value. So you will subtract its, what is its integer value? -1. That is, you are doing minus I s dot caret I, and you will add s dot caret I plus 1. This is what you are doing in terms of index if I were to tell you. S dot caret. Okay, don't get confused with this, I'll tell you. Fine. So what we are doing, 10 minus 1 and add the integer value of character at I plus 1th index. So that will become 5. So final answer now becomes 10 minus 1 plus 5, that is 14. Now since you have already taken decision for I plus 1th index also, your I should ideally be at which position? It should be I plus plus for at this step itself. Okay, now it should be I plus plus for this step itself. And when you will be in a loop, you will be checking for I plus 1th index, which will not exist. So clearly what you want to do is, your loop will also, see, I will be writing a for loop. In short, what I want you to do is, this I should finally come I at I plus 2th index. However you do it, since I will be using a for loop, so I will do a I plus plus right here, and for loops I plus plus will also increment my I once again. So finally I'll be at I plus 2th index. So you handle it in your own way. The entire motive was, if you find in the pairs the next value of the pair is less than the previous value, integer value of that pair, then you simply add the character's integer value at the ith index, and you move to I plus plus, do the same thing for the next pair. Now let's try to iterate over this one and understand again. So right now when my I is at which position? 0th position. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2. I is currently at 0. I check for I plus 1 integer value, that is 5. This value is what? This is 5, right? And this value is what? This is 10. You know that ith index value is greater than that. So I'll take decision for the character at ith index, and in my answer I will add it, so that will become 10. Now you do I plus plus. So I right now is at first index, and you do the same thing for the next pair. You consider the next pair. Now when you check what is the value of I plus 1th index, so this is 1. So 1 is less than the previous index's integer value, right? That means that you will do the same thing that you did for the previous pair, that is, you take decision for ith index and add it to your answer. You add it to your answer, this becomes 15. Now what? Simple I plus plus, and your I will be at this position. So I is at second position right now, second index. Okay, so your for in your for loop, now when you will check for I plus 1th index, that will not be available. So you need to handle in the other case when you have already traversed the string and you're at the last indexed character of your string. That means you will not found the pair for it. So just it means that you are only left with the last value, last character, which has already not been included into your answer, right? So just simply add it to your answer, and this will become 16. That's what we wanted, right? So basically this question comes down to using a for loop starting from I0 to I less than n, that is n minus 1th index, and each time I am doing I plus plus, right? Each time I am doing I plus plus. I am checking if I am storing s1 in some character. Let's assume that s1 is int s1 is the integral value of character at ith index. So that will give me value of s dot caret I, right? Then I will check for if this is your first if condition in which you are checking I plus 1 is less than n. If that is true, if this is true, then what you are doing, you are writing up straight up, something will be done here. In the else case, you are handling it in this. In else case, what you are doing, that means you are left with only last index. If still this index exists and you do not find a pair, that means you are simply going to add it to your answer. Ns plus value of, or I will store this s2 somewhere. Okay. If I plus 1 is not less than n, simply add this s2, where I will consider s2 as s dot caret I plus caret I, sorry, s1. You have taken s1 as s dot caret I, right? So that is what you will add into your answer. That means you do not have any s2. Okay, coming back to this if condition. If you have something at I plus 1th index, that means you can find a pair and now you need to take the decision. Let's consider another integer s2 as value of s dot caret I plus 1, right? That's what we wanted to do. So at I plus 1th index, you must be having some character whose value you are going to find out. I'll tell you, you will just store it in, you will just use all these values which you have. These are limited and we will return its value in a separate function. Okay, we'll come back to this. Fine. So let's assume that s2 is the integer which knows the integral value of s dot caret I plus 1. Now you make another check. So this check is for if this checks for is this s2 greater than s1 or less than s1. Accordingly you will take decisions. So if s2 is less than s1, less than or equal to s1, which is this case, let's say 10, 5, 10 is greater than 5, so you simply add this ith index value. So what you do, into your result, let's say result equals to res plus, what is this value, s1 you will do. Otherwise, in else case, in which it is smaller, that was this case, right? That was 1, 5, 1 v, it comes down to 4. So you will take up this entire pair in which the character at which you are present, that will be subtracted, and the second character's integral value will be added in order to get the answer into final result. Else res equals to res minus this s1 and add this s2. That's how you're going to create your final answer. Okay, so this if, it's else, and if this if and it's else. I hope you have understood. And also in this else, when you're doing so, do an I plus plus. Why? Because I want my I to be at I plus 2th index, because I have taken decision for I also and I plus 1th index also. So when I do I plus plus, it comes at s2, right? And then after that it goes back to this for loops condition, right? And it also does an I plus plus. So now my I will be at s2 plus 1th index, right? So that's how I'm going to handle it, and then the same loop will run. Let's go to the code and do it. So it's pretty simple, since we are doing it in one pass, no extra space. It's taking O of big O of n time complexity. Pretty simple question. Let me see if you guys have any doubt. Hi Kriti. Okay, so let's see. Let's move to the question. Okay, so how I'm going to store these values, I'll just use another function. Let's say here public int and its value function, which is taking character value, right? A character like I, V, X, and whichever it is, I will return their corresponding value. Since these are limited, so I am handling them separately. So if your C equals to what? I, you return what? 1. Do the same thing for the remaining characters. So I v, for v we return 5, for x we return 10, then we have L, we return 50, also then we have C, return 100. We must be having D now, right? You return what? 1, so 500. Come on. Then we have your M, return 1000. Okay, you can check this from here. I, V, X, L, C, D, M. Okay, that's okay. Otherwise, this is a type int function, so I'm returning -1, which it will never hit, but okay. Now what? Let's store our int res equals to 0, the final answer, which will be returning with the answer n as str dot length. Okay, start with the loop int I equals 0, I is less than n, I plus plus. Okay, keep the track of your first character, that is integer value of your first character, int s1 equals to, now you will check, let's say whatever is s1, for example this was 1, so corresponding to this you are storing its integral value into s1, so you will get this its integral value from this function, so make a call to this function value, and what is the character you are checking for, that is str dot char at I, right? So it will give you 1 in s1 will have 1 right now. Then you check if I plus 1 is less than n. Now you will be considering pairs, and accordingly you will be taking decision. In the else case, I already told you what you're gonna do. You will simply add res equals to res plus s1, right? Whatever is s1, that means you do not have any pair, you are at the last position and you do not have any pair for it to take decision for, you simply add it to your answer. And what will it be? So you can assume for now that s1 will be pointing to that ith index, which is the last index of this string. So in that case it will go to else case and we will update our answer. Okay, meanwhile now let's update this if condition. Then you take an s2 which will be storing the integral value of character I plus 1th index. So you go and ask your value function, tell me what is the integral value of character at I plus 1th index. Now you take some decisions if s1 is greater than equal to s2, right? For example, this is the case, or let's say this was the case in which you have v1, right? So that will be 6. In that case 1 is less than 5, right? So if that is the case, you into your answer you are, have I taken res or answer? Res, so you do res here, res equals to whatever your current res was, just add that s1 into it. In else case in which let's assume that this is v and now we had 10, right? Or anything which is greater than this v. Okay, so what would you do in that case? As I explained to you, for example, I'll also come on this test case. So when you have this case, you have 1, you have v, so this should ideally be subtracted and this value should be added in order to get 1v is what? It is 4, right? You know 1 is, this is 1, this is 5, so you will subtract s dot caret 1 I and add I plus 1th index. So your answer will become ans equals to ans plus s2 minus s1, right? So s2 is I plus 1th character's value and s1 is ith index's character's integral value, right? Also simultaneously you do an I plus plus, so that when you again go for the looping, your I will be incremented once again and you will be at I plus 2th index from now. Okay, let's return this res, let me do it res. Let us check. So this problem is done. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in the chat. If you have no doubts, then we will wrap this question up. So I hope you are clear with the time complexity also. It's just one traversal that we are making on this entire string. So big O of n is the time complexity. We are not taking any extra space. We are just using some variables to store the values. And that's all. That's of constant space again. Right? So that is all about your problem for today. I'll just go through this test case also in case you want to know. I'll just iterate over it. Okay. M stands for what? C, M, 1, V. So M stands for 1000, right? C stands for 100. This thing you need to know. 1, this is 1, this is 5. Okay. So in my for loop, I check for I plus 1th index. 100 is less than 1000, so I simply add its value into my answer. So my answer will currently look like 1000. Okay, fine. Now my I is at this position. I check for I plus 1th character and take this pair. I find M is what? 1000. M is greater than 100. So in this case, in my answer, I will subtract the C value, that is 100, ith value, and add I plus 1th value, which is 1000. This is what your answer will be looking like currently. Now your I for the next iteration will be at this position. Okay, you check for ith position, this is 1. Then you check for I plus 1th index which exists, and you check its value 5. So in this case also what? In this case also it is greater than 5. 1 second. Yeah. So what will you do? Since it is greater than 5, you subtract this 1 and add this 5 to your answer. That's what we were doing. So let's check what is final answer going to look like. 1000 plus 1000, 2000. 2000 minus 100, 5 minus 1, 4, right? So this is 2000 minus 100, 1900 plus 4, 1904. So I just did it in steps so that you can understand how we are getting this 1904. It's just the summation of all these values, including these negative integers. Okay. So right, so I think you have understood this traversal. So that is all about today's problem, everyone. It was an easy one. Try it on your own, you'll be able to do it. So let's wrap it up if you have no doubts. Okay, then thank you everyone. You can see the code, right? Okay, then we'll wrap it up. Bye bye, take care.